Speaking of business laptops, ThinkPad comes first. When it comes to high-end ThinkPad ones, it's necessary to mention X1 Carbon, a representative of classic business laptops in my mind. Pure black exterior, comfortable keyboard and touchpad, and the 5-digit price all manifest its status as a flagship. So, how's the performance of ThinkPad X1 Carbon 2022? Today I'm briefing you on it. Let's see the specs. This laptop features Core i7-1260p, 12-core 16 threads, 5200 ohms high-frequency RAM, and 512 grams SSD, a 14-inch screen with 2:401/400 resolution rate, and an 100 Shribi IPS board. It has many options of specs, i5 and i7 for CPU, 5.1 to G, 1T and 2T for hard disk, 2K IPS, 4000 IPS, and 2.8000 OLED for the screen. The price is agreeable as well, $1,484 or up, standard flagship price. And this series has 4 grams LTE as a standard configuration, enabling internet connection without Wi-Fi, suitable for business travel. But the complimentary data plan is only 12 months. I don't know what this change is for. The difference between business laptops and ultrabooks mostly lies in exterior. The exterior of X1 Carbon hasn't changed much. This one is textured black. Its lid's covered with dark gray grid patterns. In the upper left corner is the red spot and X1 logo. There's also a deep black for the color. The promotional image is more like classic black. The whole laptop painted with skin-like coating, even including the hinge and bezels. Feels really fancy, but the skin-like coating is likely to be stained by fingerprints. The lid is made of carbon fiber while the base panel and bottom case of magnesium. So the weight is favorable, 1.19 kilogram, and the height is 14.9 to 17.6 mm. At a regular level among ultrabooks this year, the screen can be opened to 180, and the damping is good. The board is 16:10 in ratio, feasible ratio. Bezels are less than a finger wide. This board is from AO. 115 Shribi tested color volume and 98.4 Shribi color coverage as the rated value. Though the color accuracy is ordinary, the maximum delta E is 5.8. Color correction is needed for design work. 316 nits maximum, full brightness DC dimming. Response time, 14.6 ms black white black, 24.6 ms gray to gray. The screen of X1 Carbon is enough for daily work, but the 300 nits brightness is not worthy of the price, only suitable for indoor use. One thing of the screen I don't like is colored stripes similar to those on soap bubbles. It will look a bit greasy when it's displaying light color images, harming the overall display of the screen. Above the screen is a 108p camera supporting eye and facial recognition, and has a built-in privacy shutter. On the bezel, it marks f2.0 wide aperture and 4 microphone array. See its actual performance. What's filming me is ThinkPad X1 Carbon 2022. I feel like the camera is bright and has a rather wide perspective. I gotta say, X1 Carbon's camera is indeed good. It enjoys a wider perspective than other ultrabooks. With default settings, the picture taken is brighter, less noise, and auto-beautified. I'm not double-chinned in the pic. If the default settings can't satisfy you, you can adjust the settings in Video Enhancer. Light refers to the brightness, intensity refers to contrast and sharpness. I think higher intensity looks more natural. Color refers to saturation. Lower, black and white pics, higher, oil painting pics. It also supports some special effects, like background remover, autofocus, and look correction. Pretty practical for video conference. But the intelligent collaborations can't work with Video Enhancer simultaneously. Hope it can be optimized later. After the camera effect, you think that's all? No. ThinkPad indeed has played many tricks on it. This laptop has pre-installed glance. With eye, it can realize many interesting functions, such as this smart display, which blurs the screen to prevent privacy leakage when you turn your head around. Stranger detection will show a warning sign when some other is peeping behind you. It also has sitting posture reminder. It's green when you sit right and turns yellow if your face is too close, reminding that you haven't liked the video yet. Other functions like screen splitting and auto off the mic, I'll just skip. In general, X1 Carbon did make lots of efforts in camera. The quality itself and extended functions are all good, in line with the high-end business positioning. In the base panel, the power button is on the upper right, supporting fingerprint recognition. Keyboard is splash-proof designed. Keycap surface is made to a curve that fits fingertips. Key travel is relatively long among Ultrabooks, strong rebounds, feels good in general, and the classic red spot. But the key travel of 3 above the touchpad is short, giving weak feedback. The touchpad keeps a high standard, covered with skin-like coating as well, giving a comfortable feeling of sliding and clicking. It has 2 Thunderbolt 4 and 2 USB 3, 2 Gen 1 Type A. In addition to an HDMI 2.0 and a 3.5mm audio port. This spec of port is pretty enough to handle most office work. If exterior, specs and ports are considered strengths of X1 Carbon, performance and thermals, the traditional tests of BIBA are what it's not good at. For CPU, it adopts Core i7-1260P, 4P cores, 80 cores, 12 cores and 16 threads in total. In Cinebench R20 single thread, it can achieve 590 points, much better than the 11th Gen core. But if compared horizontally, the score is low among those with Core i7-1260P because of the low power, only 17 watts of CPU, which supports CPU to achieve only 4.2 GHz single core but the max clock speed at 4.7 GHz. For the R20 multi-core loop, it exceeds 3,400 points in the first run, and then fluctuates around 2,500, about 800 higher than last year. CPU power in the first run is high, rushing over 40 watts, then 27 watts. It drops to 18 watts in next rounds with a little fluctuation. As a traditional business laptop, X1 Carbon's always conservative in performance release, showing no sign of competing with 40 watts Ultrabooks. We also tested IGPU, and the result is just as we expected, a bit better than last year, but it's still ordinary among this year's Ultrabooks. The reason is the same. The conservative design of power makes IGPU can't keep the max 1.4 GHz in some long tests and will slide to 1.1 in later period. Conservativeness also affects the performance in games. Even these games that don't require much of specs are too burdensome for the native 2.2000 resolution. Genshin Impact, 24 FPS in average, movie-like quality, it's torture. If it's lowered to 1080p, CSGO can run to 140 FPS while Dota 2 and Genshin Impact to 40 to 50 barely enough. As for productivity, we only tested PS due to lack of Deju, and it scored 714 points. Competent in simple work like PS and poster making. Don't push it to more difficult tasks. As it's not good at games and content creation, let's go back to its own work, that is, web browser and Office. In Microsoft Edge, it isn't so different than other 12th Gen Ultrabooks, all around 13,000, same to Office software. It even excels the more expensive XP 13 Plus in Word. In other words, lower CPU power may lead to lower FPS, but for low-loaded application like Office work, performance release is already enough. Generally, its performance tuning keeps to a minimum, so it's not good at heavy loaded work. Why is the tuning so conservative, mainly for temperature control? We carried out stress test by stress CPU. High temperature concentrates in the upper left corner, with the hottest keycap at 46 degrees. Feels hot, but it's not the hottest. What's the hottest is the left bezel, reaching 48°C. It literally will burn your finger if you accidentally touch it when typing. Found out that heat of the left bezel mainly comes from charging IC. Even during standby, 30 minutes of charging will heat this area up to 43 degrees. Besides, the CPU is on the left side. 2 heat sources are close to each other, no wonder the temperature is high. Now we go back to stress test. Its stress test curves are a little peculiar. First, it hits 50 watts, soon falls back, stabilizes around 18 watts before rising and declining, and stops at 13 watts. Every 10 minutes or so a loop like this. CPU power in 30 minutes is 19 watts in average. The core temperature peaks at 97 degrees thermal throttling and goes down to 70 degrees at its lowest. Noise. The full load noise level is 35.4 decibels, close to ambient noise, nearly imperceptible in daily use. In summary, X1 Carbon's inclined to be quiet in heat dissipation by lowering the fan speed to achieve noise reduction. But this adjustment leads to hotter exterior. If CPU power is further increased, temperature may get out of control, which betrays its positioning. Many business laptops achieve low noise at the cost of low power. This train of thought is feasible to me. But the upper left corner of X1 Carbon keyboard is still too hot. Hope it can be optimized in the next gen. Finally, disassemble it to look at the internal structure. It's not hard. Screws at the bottom are anti-loss designed. Unscrew them to uncover the back lid. The internal structure is still wild, not much different than the last year. The cooling module is single heat pipe plus dual fans, mini fans. Battery capacity is 57 Wh. PC Mark 10 Modern Office battery life, 7 hours 47 minutes, shorter than last year. If the brightness is adjusted to 200 nits to run the heavier loaded daily battery life test, the result is 3 hours 50 minutes. This test is under more stress and can be used as a cross-reference. SSD is the 512GB Samsung PM901, covered with thermal pads, runs fast in benchmark, soldered Wi-Fi card, Intel AX211, supports Wi-Fi 6E. Limiting transmission speed of the Wi-Fi card is enough for daily use. Under the Wi-Fi card is the 4 grams LTE module, Quectel M05, much bigger than the Wi-Fi card. Memory is behind the motherboard, LPDDR5 5200 MHz, which exceeds my expectation for its lower latency than others with the same specs. While others reach 100 to 110 nanoseconds, it can limit to 95 nanoseconds. After seeing all the tests, you must have certain understanding of this laptop. As usual, we list 3 merits and 3 demerits for your reference. It's easy to find X1 carbon excels at the exterior. Peripheral and quietness that facilitate daily use. In brightness, performance, and exterior temperature. It loses its advantage, so its targeted users is clear. Business people who don't pay much attention to specs. They use laptops just for work like typing, meeting, and writing emails that don't need high performance, rather than other performance-oriented ultrabooks. This business laptop with a nice keyboard, high-quality camera, and LTE better meets their needs. Just put games away. This kind of laptop is for work only. Don't be too harsh on it. As for the purchase advice, among the 4 specs for sale, the basic i5 is the same as i7 except for the processor. I think it's cost-effective. You can also equip it with a better screen and better RAM disk, as long as you have enough budget. Okay, this is all for today's video. Please hit like and subscribe to our channel. Your like is very important to me. If you want to know about laptops, please follow us on WeChat official account. I will talk about a laptop there every day to provide info and guidance. This is BIBA Laptops. I'm Juan.